Welcome back to Buzz Recaps. Today, I will explain a romantic drama film released in 1992. Before moving ahead, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. The movie begins in the year 1895 when a girl named Tita was born in a kitchen, and a maid named Nacha said that she was born into tears. Before Tita was born, two girls were born in that house. After Tita's birth, everyone started taunting Tita's father for being unable to have a son. Later, when Rita's father was told that his second daughter's father was someone else, he was heartbroken and had a heart attack, and he died on the spot. Later, during the funeral, Tita's mother, Elena, told Nacha that she would not be able to have more children after her husband's death. According to the family tradition, Tita had to serve Elena until Elena's death because she was the youngest daughter in the family, and she also could not marry until then. From that day, Nacha took up Tita's responsibility and raised her in the kitchen, where she grew up making new dishes. Since childhood, Tita has started to learn to express her emotions by cooking, and she was closer to Nacha than her mother. Later, through food, she met a boy named Pedro, who started to like Tita, and after a few years, Tita also started to like him. In her mind, her desire to be with Pedro increased. One night, Pedro told her that he wanted to marry her, and Tita also expressed her love for him. However, when Tita told her mother about Pedro, she clearly said that she could not marry until her death. Meanwhile, Tita could not raise her voice against her family's tradition, and still, Tita invited Pedro and his father to her house on her birthday. And knowing that, Elena got angry. Elena explained her family tradition to Pedro's father. He said that if Pedro wanted to get married, he could marry Tita's older sister, Rosa, who was only 2 years older than Tita. Hearing that, their maid Chuncha was also surprised, and she told those sisters about the cruelty. However, Rosa was very happy to hear that Pedro had agreed to marry her. Tita's heart broke seeing her love going away. Nacha heard Pedro say he had agreed to marry just to be close to Tita. However, when Nacha went to tell Tita the same thing, she refused to listen. Meanwhile, Tita did not understand what she was feeling because she had not learned to express her emotions. Later, she did not even become a part of her sister's engagement, and for that, she had to listen to bad things from her mother. She was not ready to listen to Pedro, and soon, the wedding day came. One night before the wedding, Tita started making cake, and tears came to her eyes. At that time, some tears were dropped from her eyes into the cake. Only Nacha valued Tita's emotions, although she couldn't do anything for her. On the wedding day, the villagers started spreading the rumor that Pedro and Tita were having an affair. Not only that, meanwhile Pedro also told Tita the real reason for this marriage with her sister, and Tita's happiness returned. However, Elena understood their intentions and told Tita to stay away from Pedro. Later, after eating the cake made by Tita, all the guests started crying because they remembered their lost love. Elena also remembered the man she couldn't marry, and then all those guests started to vomit in the river. At that time, Tita found out that Nacha had died. When she tells Elena about Nacha's death, Elena starts beating her because she had ruined the cake. For 3 months, Pedro was successful in staying away from Rosa, and every night, she would force him to get intimate with her. However, one night, he had to get close to Rosa, and they got intimate after 3 months. And the next day, Rosa insisted on making food herself by removing Tita from the kitchen because she had found out that she was pregnant. Rosa was making food for the first time in her life, and no one liked her cooking because, since childhood, Tita had to make all the food in that house. A few days later, Pedro brought some flowers for Tita, and Rosa got upset. Elena told Tita to throw the flowers at that time. Instead of throwing the flowers, Tita remembered the lesson from Nacha, and she decided to make a sauce from the flowers. This time, too, Tita filled her emotions with that spicy dish. And after eating that dish, everyone started feeling what Tita was feeling. Only Rosa couldn't feel these emotions. And to humiliate Tita, Elena said that the food was not good. Meanwhile, not just Pedro. After eating that spicy dish, Tita's second sister, Gert, couldn't stop her hidden desires. That same day, she ran away with a Mexican revolutionary named Juan, while Tita couldn't start her affair with Pedro even if she wanted to. Tita made a story for Elena and told her that some goons had kidnapped Gert, and a priest told the family that those people had taken her away from the village across the border, and she has been forced to be a prostitute. Elena believed their story, and she fell ill thinking about her daughter, while only Tita knew the truth. Elena erased Gert's name from the family forever. Tita took the remaining things and sent them to her. After a few months, it was time for Rosa's delivery, and Tita had to take on her responsibility. Somehow, she remembered Nacha and got the delivery done. However, the child was born weak. Tita and Pedro were still expressing love for each other in their eyes, and because Rosa was sick, Tita had to take care of her son Roberto. At the same time, Elena still had doubts about Tita and Pedro's affair, thus why she kept an eye on them all the time. Tita kept Roberto with her all the time because Rosa's health was getting worse day by day. Meanwhile, Pedro was trying to stay with Tita, while Elena would come between them every time. However, one night, Pedro could not stop himself, and Elena and Rosa both understood that it was not right for them to stay with Tita. The next day, she sent Pedro, Rosa, and Roberto away from the house and to Texas. After they left, Elena started behaving badly with Tita. She used to make her do housework, and the situation was going to get worse because she got the news that Roberto had died. Hearing about his death, Tita started crying while Elena did not even allow her to cry. Tita could not bear this pressure this time, and she told Elena that Elena was the reason for Roberto's death. She gets angry and slapped her. After that day, Tita became scared of her mother and stayed in her room. Later, a man named Dr. Brown took her out of her trouble and took her to Texas. Brown, whose wife had passed away a few years ago, and since then, he has lived with his son. Tita was going through shock, so Brown tried to cure her. She had now left her mother's clutches. However, she could not understand what her hands could be used for, because those hands have only learned to cook. Brown explained to her that every human being has a thing in their life that makes them feel alive, and there is also a tunnel of light that reminds us of the path we often forget after birth. The next day, her maid and friend Chunchul came to meet Tita, and because of Chunchul and Brown's soup, Tita started getting better. Tita told Chunchul that she must tell Elena she would never return home. Hearing this, Brown was happy because he was in love with Tita, and he told Tita that he wanted to marry her, to which Tita also agreed. On the other hand, some robbers molested Chancha and killed Elena. As soon as Tita found out about her mother's death, she started preparing for her mother's funeral with Brown. At that time, she found out about her mother's affair and the secret of her father's death. For the first time, she understood that her mother had also gone through the same circumstances that Tita was going through. When Pedro finds out at the funeral that Tita is marrying Brown, he cannot bear it. At the same time, it was time for Rosa's second child to be delivered, and she gave birth to a daughter. Then Brown told him that the baby girl was healthy. However, Rosa will not be able to give birth to more children after that. The baby girl was named Esperanza, and Tita was disappointed to know that because of being the only daughter, that girl would also have to live a life like Tita. Esperanza liked being in the kitchen and close to food like Tita. That's why Tita started keeping her close to food. Seeing Tita and Brown together, Pedro's anger increased, and later at night, he went to Tita's room, and then they got intimate. Suddenly, there was a storm, and Chunchul thought that Elena's spirit was still wandering around the house. Later, unaware of last night, Rosa started asking for help from Tita to win Pedro's heart. Meanwhile, after whatever happened between Tita and Pedro, Tita has started seeing Elena's spirit in her room, and after that, she starts seeing Elena's spirit everywhere because she felt that she had made her mother angry. That same night, Gert returned to that house with her husband, Juan. Gert had become part of the revolutionaries group, and both the sisters were very happy with each other. After a few days, Tita found out that maybe she was pregnant and Pedro was the father of her child. When she told Gert about her pregnancy while crying, Gert told her that she and Pedro's love was pure, and it doesn't matter what Rosa will think about that child. That's why Tita should not have any regrets. Pedro was happy to know that Tita would be the mother of his child, and they both started waiting for the child to be born. Later, Tita again saw Elena's spirit, and that spirit kept cursing her. However, this time, Tita said that she wants to live according to her own will and has always hated Elena. After that, Elena's spirit left Tita forever. And before going, that spirit took out its anger on Pedro. And Pedro told Tita to stay with him in front of everyone. And from that day, Tita started treating him. After a few days, it was time for Gert to leave, and Brown came home and completed Pedro's treatment. Pedro still feels jealous about Tita's marriage. However, when he asks Tita to break her marriage, Tita tells him that she is not pregnant. She was just mistaken. Pedro told her that he had married her sister just for Tita, and Tita did not want to come to him even after he destroyed his life for her. And after some time, there was an argument between Tita and Rosa about Pedro. And in the argument, Rosa said she would not let a cheap woman like Tita come close to her daughter. At that time, Tita decided that she would not let Esperanza be oppressed under their family tradition, and she would get married. Meanwhile, Tita was regretting her actions. That's why she told Brown the truth about her affair with Pedro. She also said that they should break the marriage. However, Brown tells her he still loves Tita and wants to marry her. Soon, Tita and Brown got married, and 20 years later, Tita got Esperanza married to Brown's son Alex. And on the wedding day, Pedro and Tita came in front of each other again. Alex was going to go to America with Esperanza and Brown, and knowing that, Pedro and Tita remembered the love they had forgotten many years ago, and they felt they could live with each other again because of that marriage. As soon as they got a chance to live together, they happily started living in that house and got intimate. However, that same night, Pedro had a heart attack and he died. His death was shocking for Tita, and she also gave up her life and killed herself, and after death, she finally got a chance to live with her love. Tita and Pedro's love story was written in Tita's book, and in the present, Esperanza's daughter read that book and she learned about her family's traditions and the art of cooking so that she could keep Esperanza and Tita alive forever. With that, the movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe. See you next time. Take care.